today we're going to dive right into the heart of this training event. We're excited to get to hear from our wonderful keynote speaker, Arlene Pellicane, and she's going to have to sign off just a little early. So we want to be sure and give her as much time as we possibly can. So without delay, we're going to kick things off with our opening prayer. And today our opening prayer is going to be led by Marriage Initiative's own Anna Panter. So Anna, whenever you are ready.
Good morning, friends. Okay, I just wanted to say we're so thankful for all of you, and let's go ahead and pray. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for this gathering, for these champions, for the cities and the communities they represent. I pray, Lord, that every time we speak this work, that we think about this work, that we choose to act upon this work, that we remember individual couples, we remember the Lord's will, and that we can rejoice and celebrate with others in the restoration of marriage, and bringing help and hope. Thank you for the speakers on the agenda today. I pray for Arlene and Dennis and Carl, that Lord, you would just speak through each of them, the wisdom that you would have us all to hear. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Anna, for your prayer. Well, it is truly an honor to get to introduce you today to our speaker, Arlene Pellicane. And I've personally found Arlene's content to be so very impactful. I've been watching her talks on YouTube, and it is just really inspiring. And Arlene is a captivating speaker. She's the host of the Happy Home podcast. She's the spokesperson for National Marriage Week, and she's the brilliant author behind impactful books such as Parents Rising, 31 Days to a Happy Husband, and Screen Kids. Her wisdom has graced major platforms, including The Today Show, Fox and Friends, The Wall Street Journal, and Focus on the Family. Arlene, along with her husband, James, calls San Diego home, where they raise 3 exceptional children who are not at all defined by screens. And if you'd like to take a deeper dive into her transformative teachings, you can explore her website at arlenepellicane.com and discover her enriching online courses at happyhomeuniversity.com. So welcome, Arlene. We are so happy to have you with us today, and we can't wait to hear from you.
You are so kind, Steph. That was such a sweet introduction. And I feel like I am honored to be with you because you guys are the champions in the trenches, doing the work, being faithful. So it is truly my honor to be with you. And thank you, Steph, so much for that. So I am going to share with you a little bit about me, and then some things that I hope you'll be able to bring for your own life and to the people that you minister to. My husband, James, and I, we have been married for almost 25 years in January. And when we were first dating, right, we were in grad school in Virginia Beach and Regent University, and we were in that stage where you're just looking at each other. And this is, kind of before social media and all these things. It's 1998, and we're just looking at each other, and we could do this for hours, like hours, just sit on the couch and look at each other. And one day we were on a date, and he was looking at me and he said, do you know what I'm getting older now, so I'm wearing my glasses instead of my contacts. But he said to me when I was wearing my contacts, you know what I see when I look into your eyes? I said, what do you see when you look in my eyes? He said, I see the letters AV. Your contact lenses say AV. And I was like, no way. I can't believe this man knows exactly what my contact lenses say. And when you are dating and in those early years, right, there's just this care and this precision. You have a cue, like something's wrong. What's wrong, darling? How can I help you? So we start at this AV level where we see everything and our world revolves around the other person. And you fast forward 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever. If the average person you're ministering to was staring at their spouse, like looking at them for no reason, there's no doubt that spouse would be like, what? Why are you looking at me? That spouse would say, like, do I have spinach in my teeth? What? Are you mad at me? Like, why are you staring at me? Like, we just do not do that. And if we were to sit on a couch together and just, kind of put our arms around each other and look at each other, after a few seconds, we'd be like, And what is the purpose of this? Like, do you have some information to give me? Is there something you did tell me about the kids? We are just not used to this prolonged time of gazing at each other, looking at each other. And, I've written some books with Dr. Gary Chapman, and I love what he talks about, that if God left us in that state all the time, we would get nothing done. So it is actually natural to move out of that state. But how can we get people back to falling in love with each other again and again and again? The key of falling in love over and over and over again to the same person. How can we do that in marriage ministry? How can we do that in our own lives? And this is something I deal with too. So I do not have the perfect marriage. I don't wake up every day like, oh, I love my husband. But there are some things that have certainly helped us, and I'm going to share that today. Something that's really distracting, that is new, is the phone. And that it is literally so distracting. Business Insider says that the average user touches their phone 2,600 times a day. So that's a swipe, that's an open, that's a look, that's a click, 2,600 times a day. When I'm out on like a date night talking to a group of people, let's say, and I try to make it amusing and fun, I'll make a joke that, can you imagine if you just reached out to your spouse like 5 times a day and you touch them, you you held them, you touched them, whoa, what's happening? So you compare that to the 2,600 times we are touching the phone. And so we are living in this new age of distraction where we have these built-in habits where we're turning to our phones instead of to our spouses. And so a question to ask and help our people ask is, hey, is your spouse more interesting than your phone? Do you find your spouse more interesting than your phone? And the answer would be no, because how can our spouse possibly be more interesting than the newest movie on Netflix, than the news that is so, hyped up, that, how can one person be that? And so we have to have more of a curiosity about our spouse. The world is very much into happiness, right? I just want to do what's good for me. I just want to do what makes me happy. If it makes me happy, that must be the right path. And because of this view, people are walking into divorce because they think, okay, you don't make me happy anymore. Or they're saying, I don't want to be married. I have a college age student, 2 high schoolers, all of them very much would like to get married. But there are a lot of their peers who aren't even thinking about it. Like that, marriage, I don't know, that might not even be an option, because what are we told? What are we shown in social media as we're looking at our phones? Oh, well, if you get married, like you're going to be bored. You're going to have a ball and chain. You're going to have children. That's going to be hard. You're going to have this awful life where all you do is run a carpool. Your dreams will be, just deflated, and, you won't have sex and all these things that if you get married, that's the idea that's out there. But something that we can know, and that's so exciting, and something we can share, is this recent research that Brad Wilcox has done that we are just so like, wow, the Institute of Family Studies and what they found on happiness. So listen to these statistics. It's amazing, because it turns out that marriage predicts happiness. Marriage leads to happiness more than a great career or lots of money or the things that we think would make us happy. So what they found is if you had a college education, you will be 64% happier than the person without. If you have a higher income, 88% boost in happiness. If you're very satisfied with your work, you're 145% happier than the average. If you are married, just plain married, you are 151% happier. So that is just a dull, hey, we stuck it out, we are together kind of marriage. 151% happier. Look at that. That's so much more than the 64% college education. And I just have to think, in the realm that I live in, where all these people are talking about college all the time, and they think getting to the right college will then unlock the future for this next generation. And we can know, no, that's so not true. Having a great marriage would be so much more of a benefit, to unlock a great future. So being very happily married, a happy marriage, you see a boost of 545%. So we are so grateful for Brad Wilcox for his research, 545%. So you can say like, hey, you want to come learn about this thing that will make you 545% happier than the norm. Wow. People will podcast about this. They'll want to put it in a bottle. They'll want to put it in a pill. They will want to consume this. And this is a happy marriage. And this is something that we can offer to people. And so my books are 31 Days to a Happy Husband. I saw one of you like, oh, only 31 days, or oh, we'll have you. And, both of my books are written towards women. So I am sorry. I know people are so disappointed when they come. They're like, what? My husband doesn't have to do any work, but this is more, I'm a woman writing to women. So Happy Husband is about, hey, for us wives, a lot of times we get the kids, our job, the church, ministry, and we kind of forget that our husband's there. We figure he's an adult, he can take care of himself. So this kind of puts him on top shelf. Once again, 31 Days to a Happy Husband. And then 31 Days to Becoming a Happy Wife is my book that is about, regardless of what's happening in your marriage, how can you restore that joy of being a wife? And so I love to just ask couples, how can you dream again? And how can you take that positive step towards saying, we have a really great marriage instead of like, we have a ho-hum marriage? So I want to give you just two principles that have helped me actually this week. The first principle, and again, my husband and I have been married almost 25 years. We both work from home. I'm an author and a speaker. I'm at home. He's a realtor. His office is at home. We see each other all the time. There's a lot of familiarity. And so how do we move from complacency to curiosity? And so this is one of my tips for this morning is how can we move from complacency to curiosity that, oh, I know this, I've seen this, etc. So just a few nights ago, I hear my husband, it's about 8 o'clock at night. My husband, I hear like sounds coming out of the bedroom, like he's listening to something. So I'm thinking, oh, he's watching some kind of YouTube video about health or cold plunges, like that is, or electric cars, like he's doing something like this. Something, oh, that's so boring. Like, I don't want to go in there. So I walk into the bedroom and I see that he's sitting on the bed and he's got his phone and he's listening to something. And so I just automatically assume, oh, there he is, getting his information, like this is so boring. And I just like kind of am I going to walk out? But then I think, okay, I'm kind of complacent in this situation. But what if I was curious? And I was reading a book about this, about being more curious. So I said, okay, what if I was more curious? So I said to him, honey, what are you listening to? What are you doing? And he was listening to an audiobook by Brian Grazer, who is a very successful Hollywood director, Apollo 13, things like that. And the book is called A Curious Mind. And he was writing in his journal this quote: familiarity is the enemy of curiosity. When our curiosity about those closest to us fades, that's the moment our connection begins to fray. It frays slightly, almost invisibly. But when we stop asking genuine questions to those around us, and most importantly, when we stop really listening to the answers, that's when we start to lose our connection. And you can imagine, I was thinking like, oh my goodness, if I hadn't have stopped to ask you this question, then I would be living what this quote is trying to talk about, that I'm just thinking this story, oh, you're just an information junkie and you're just living in more information. I'm not really interested in that. I'm going to walk away. Come to find out, you're actually learning something about being more curious about me in our marriage. Because, I would say myself and our children, those are the people closest to my husband. So you're trying to learn how to be close to us. So I just was blown away with this idea of, what if we didn't assume what our spouse was thinking, learning, gonna say? And what if we were to ask, like, what were you thinking about just then? Or tell me about what you were reading, or tell me about the podcast you were listening to today, or tell me about a problem that you experienced at work. And we really didn't fill in the blanks. We didn't know the answer, and we were truly curious. And it just opens up this whole newness. And I think that is part of how we fall in love again, is that we're discovering new things about this person and we're falling in love again. So move from complacency to curiosity. And then the last thing I want to share is move from comparison to contentment. And we've already touched on the phone, and you can imagine it used to be maybe that you can compare to the people you knew at church, like, oh, what vacations are they going on? And how much money does that person make? And what kind of, domestic support do they get around? You could just compare to the people you knew in real life. But now what do? You look at your phone and you look at millions of people around the world, and most likely you're looking at celebrities that are being boosted who have perfect lives because they only put the things that are nice on Instagram. Everything else is hidden. So you're not getting a real comparison to the real world. And you're thinking to yourself, I can't believe I didn't go on that Hawaiian vacation. And I can't believe that that husband is willing to travel with the kids when you didn't even know that there was a nanny there because they weren't pictured, you know? So you need to know that, wait, what am I comparing my marriage against? Is it true? Is it false? You know, I recently went to the mall right here by Christmas time. It's crazy, right? But I went on a weekday in the morning. It was actually quite nice. But I was walking through Nordstrom. And normally, you know, I feel very like a nice, whatever. I don't think about myself. I just walk around. But when I was in Nordstrom, everyone looked so nice and people's jewelry was so nice and their makeup was so nice and everything was so nice. And truly, I questioned myself. I thought, my word, I'm a 50-something-year-old person and I'm questioning the way I look just because I'm with all these people that look so beautiful. What in the world are my children, right? You know, children and teenagers who live in this Instagram world, how do they feel? And I really think that we have to watch where we go and watch what we think about so that we are not, you know, obviously I need to then, if I think about that, I'll say, Arlene, you're just completely judging on externals. You're judging on the external makeup, the clothes that people are wearing, and you feel like you don't measure up to that. But we know from Samuel, God doesn't look at that. God looks at the heart. And we know there's so much more to everybody's story. And so in our own marriages and in the marriages we minister, let's remind each other sometimes we're putting ourselves against a bar that does not even exist. Like it's not even real. I was reading that reference I made to that dad. I was reading about Dave Hollis, who was has now passed and was like a tragic, he was social media influencer. Him and his wife Rachel Hollis, she's the Girl Wash Your Face author. You know, we're always huge. You know, he has 500,000 followers. They're following them and their 4 children and their lives look amazing and perfect. And of course, on the inside of that, they divorced and all sorts of things happen. But this thing that really caught my attention was someone in his work was like, wow, you're a super dad. I saw your post. You were traveling with your 4 kids alone. That's amazing. You're such a super dad. You must be so tired now coming back to work. And he said, oh no, the nanny was with us the whole time, but that just doesn't play well on social. And our people, when they're on social media and when they're on things and they're comparing themselves against that, we need to realize that's a ruse of the devil. The devil is a liar. And so he is lying to people about what is real, and these things are not real. So let us move from complacency to curiosity, from comparison to contentment, and let's really have that real thing that our kids, our grandkids, people watching us, that they want. So Dr. Gary Chapman, he has this book called The 5 Traits of a Healthy Family. And so I've interviewed Dr. Chapman many times on the Happy Home podcast, as you can imagine, love him as I know you do too, so dearly. And in the book, he talks about a young man named John who asked him a very strange question. They had college students at their home on Friday nights. They had the Chapmans had this college student ministry, and then they had 2 small kids at the time. And one of the students said, I have had never a good example of what a good marriage looks like. I have no idea what normal, healthy people do. Would you consider if I lived in your house for 1 year? You can imagine, I'm sorry, but I wouldn't even have to pray about that. I'd say, no, I'm sorry, you cannot live in my house for 1 year. But Dr. Chapman and Carolyn, his wife, did pray about it, did talk to the kids about it. And the kids were very excited about having this young man come. They didn't have a room for him. They built him a little spot in the basement. And that man named John lived with the Chapmans for 1 year to see what would happen. And this later on is what he would write about it. I think that was of tremendous value to me in later being able to respect my own wife and appreciate her as an individual and be able to talk through things. I don't know what I would have done if I had not lived in your home before I went into marriage. I shudder to think. It really gave me a very important transition into my life as a husband and later as a father. And he's basically saying, I got to see the real thing and it changed my life. And so let it be that in our marriages, with all the imperfections, but the moving forward, moving closer to God, moving closer to each other, let people see, oh, that's how you do this. Let our children and our children's children see, oh, that's how you do this. I want to end with this poem by Derek. So Dr. Chapman's son, who watched, you know, this person in their house later as an adult, wrote this poem, or maybe he might have even been a teenager. A stranger's eyes on us, looking at and through us, as morning light falls through windows onto breakfast table. We pause for prayer, His eyes stay open, watching to see if it is real, this family bowing over another meal. So I love this, that people are watching and people need hope to know that this can be real. People need hope that you could also boost your marriage happiness by 545%. So that's how I close my podcast all the time, is that you don't have to come from a happy home to create one. You too can have a happy home. People, if you put God's word first and you live the way he tells you to live, you will by byproduct have a happy home. So thank you so much for the privilege of being with you. Dr. Chapman and I are going to be speaking together at a conference in March, on March 2nd in San Diego, California. It's called Parents Rising, the Parents Rising Conference. And in Parents Rising, one of the chapters is marriage does not take the back seat, it takes the front seat. So we are trying to help parents understand this. You have to tend to your marriage, not just to your children. So if you know anyone, if you're close enough to San Diego, if you want to come vacation in San Diego on March 2nd, please tell your people about it at the Parents Rising Conference, and that's at happyhomeuniversity.com. And again, thank you so much. I'm going to we run a Bible club at the public school, and we are throwing a Christmas party today. So that's where I'm headed. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Arlene. That was so inspiring, and we just loved hearing from you. So we thank you so much in your busy schedule for taking the time to be with us and share with us today.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank
God
you.
bless you too.
Thank you so much.
Right. Well, up next on our agenda, we are excited that we get to hear from Mr. Dennis Stoica. And as you know, he's the founder of the Community Marriage Initiative Fund, and he's going to be sharing why marriage matters to him. But before we turn Dennis loose, our CMI teams have a special treat. We have created a digital thank you card, and we've created this just because we want to express to Dennis our gratitude for who he is and what he brings to the CMI family. And so, Dennis, I'm going to share this video with you. Hello, Dennis. I just want to say that we are so grateful to have you as part of our CMI family. You are such an amazing influence, and you're making such an amazing impact all across this nation. And you know, I get to be on our monthly calls, and I get to hear firsthand the stories of impact, the stories of families being changed, the stories of marriages being saved, the stories of communities being impacted, and the stories of really our CMI teams across the nation's reach being broadened because of you, because of your generous heart, because of your answer to the call of God on your life, and because of your just amazing influence. And we just want to say thank you, Dennis, for all you bring to our CMI family, for your generous heart, for your amazing influence, and just for the amazing man of God that you are. We just thank you, and we're grateful for you. And we hope you know this holiday season that all across this nation, there are CMI teams who respect you, who love you, and who very much appreciate you. So Dennis, we hope that this is your best Christmas ever. Thank you.
Dennis, thanks for who you are, your passion for marriages, and your drive to make a difference has inspired us at Friends of the Family in Oregon to think bigger and to have a deeper impact across our communities.
Hi, I'm Amy Guilford from the Maryland Marriage Initiative. And Dennis, we are just so thankful for the many ways that you've supported us over the years. And because of you, we're able to work upstream to reach thousands of children each year, students, and strengthen many marriages in the Maryland area. Merry Christmas.
Hi, Dennis. Bill McCarroll. Hey, on behalf of Ann and I would like to just thank you for all you've done to help organizations around the country, more specifically what you've done to strengthen and build marriages for MRVC.
Hey, Dennis!
Thank you for helping marriages in Maryland.
Tom Pritchard with the Twin Cities Marriage Initiative in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm somewhat of a newbie to the Community Marriage Initiative movement, But Dennis, as I've gotten to know you, I've been very impressed by your long-term commitment to strengthening marriages and families, your wisdom, your knowledge, your insight, and also your generosity of time and your resources. So I pray that the Lord gives you many more years of service, health, and strength, blessings on your family, and all the best. God bless.
Hey Dennis, this is John Conger of the Nashville Area Marriage Initiative. Thank you for all you've done to support the marriage initiatives, not only in this area, but all over the country.
Hey Dennis, Paul and Saul here from the Austin Marriage Initiative.
Hey, I just want to thank you for the vision that you have for bringing us all together at the community level, the national level, and amplifying the work that everybody's doing. It's an incredible vision. I am so thankful for that.
Yeah, because of your grant, we're able to connect with and work with churches in our area, and through them, the congregations and communities that they serve. So thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, this is Jason and Caro with the Central Arkansas Marriage Initiative. And Dennis, man, let me just say how grateful I am for you. Thank you so much for all of your support, for coming alongside me when I was just getting started. Thank you for all the training you've given me, and thank you for just believing that this can be done. You have been a great inspiration for me, and because of you, I am where I am today, and we are where we are today in the initiative. So thanks so much, man. We appreciate you.
Hello, Dennis. This is Mark Ellis with the Central Arkansas Marriage Initiative, and I just wanted to say thank you for all that you've done for us, helping us to get the grant, and just a couple of things from this year that really made a big impact on us and helping us to move forward was partially working through the grant that we did for the federal PPP. Even though we didn't get it, it was a great experience. And then also we had the opportunity to meet with you when you were in town, and that was so helpful. We appreciate you taking time out of your travel to come see us. So we hope you have a great Christmas and a happy New Year.
Hey Dennis, it's Logan. Marriage ministry is often an uphill battle, but you are so great at giving support and encouragement when I really need it the most. You're such an incredible listener, and you always show empathy for what I'm going through. You always make a point of making me feel loved and encouraged in a way that is meaningful to me. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for your vision, your patience, and your wonderful devotion to this critical mission. We couldn't do it without you. Thank you.
Hey Dennis, Ted here, and honestly I just wanted to say a genuine thank you for everything that you do for marriages and how you engage people, even when they're only willing to take just a really, really small step. I remember a story of a time when you and I were working together with this couple, and I got done helping, and I just thought, man, this is hopeless. And you said, no, Ted, they came in a 5 and now they're a 6. And just your enthusiasm to help people is infectious. And so thank you, Dennis, for all that you do.
Hey Dennis, it's Ron and Joan McLean. Joan's holding the camera, so. But hey, we just want to say that we love you. We appreciate you so much for all you've done for so many people around this country and around the world, I'm sure. But especially for how you stepped in to help me write grant proposals early on. And I remember you saying, if you do everything I say, I can almost guarantee you're going to get this grant, and you did. And it was blood, sweat, and tears, brother, but it was because of your love and your commitment to us. And so we really appreciate that. And then, of course, this latest grant that you've given us, we really appreciate you and all that we've been able to do because of that. So God bless you, brother, and God bless your wife as well.
Hey, Dennis, this is Devin Tharp from Charlotte, North Carolina. And on behalf of the Greater Charlotte Marriage Initiative, I just want to tell you, thank you. Thank you for your investment in marriage ministry. It means the world to people like me, leaders in cities who are trying to make a difference in marriages all over our community. And so your leadership, your example has just served us so well.
Hi Dennis, this is Jim Samons from Friends of the Family out in Corvallis, Oregon. I went to work for Friends of the Family about a year ago. I'd never heard of you, never have heard of community marriage initiatives. Been a pastor most of my life, but cared deeply about marriages. Over this past year, you have enabled us to touch hundreds of marriages. We've had contact with over 65 pastors, and we'll hold our 4th roundtable discussion this December because of your generosity, your love for Jesus, and your care for marriages. Thank you.
Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning.
As you know, we're Jerry and Kate from the Missouri team, but today we're in the beautiful state of Florida, and we were just talking about you, about the irony of how we probably wouldn't even be here today if it wasn't through our contacts and our friendship with you. And we wanted to take a moment and say thank you for all that you've done for our ministry and for people of the great state of Missouri. And the Bible says that where your treasure is, there your heart may be also. And no one has demonstrated that more clearly to us than you, Dennis. You've been such a generous benefactor for our ministry, and not just in finances, but in friendship and all the boot camps and all of the training and the wisdom that we've gained from you. And again, we just wanted to say thank you and how much we really appreciate you.
Thank you, Dennis. We really do appreciate you.
Hi, Dennis. This is Brady and Melissa Vandenberg coming to you from big, wonderful Wyoming. We just want to express our sincere gratitude for your personal interest and investment in Wyoming. And because of you, families will be changed and legacies will be changed for generations to come in Wyoming.
One of the things that has been really impactful in Wyoming is the mentoring program, and we're getting testimonies back from now. We've trained over 80 marriage mentors. And I just want to read to you, Dennis, this one family that attribute to your giving and your grant to our city to saving their marriage. This was a young man who found Christ through the mentoring program, and he says, working with our mentors was life-changing. We went into this mentoring program as lost as we could be. We had no hope. Every marriage in my family has been divorced. This program was successful in helping us to to have tools and guidance that we needed that significantly has changed our marriage. In fact, I would say unequivocally, it has saved our marriage, and we will be changing our family legacy from here forward. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for investing in us. So we share that, Dennis, just to say truly you're impacting lives. We also have not been able to share with you that Wyoming was awarded an SRE grant thanks to the time that you invested in us and our state to help them write the grant through your grant boot camp. So thank you. We love you, Dennis. We're so appreciative to be a part of the CMI program.
Hi, Dennis. This is Bruce and Lita Wilbanks with Marriage and Family Initiative in Tulsa. We just want to take this opportunity to thank you so much for all that you've done. You're really and truly an answer to our prayers.
Because of this grant opportunity, we are excited to be launching the Tulsa Marriage Resource Network here in Tulsa and the surrounding area.
Thank you so much, Dennis.
Thank you very much. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, Dennis, wow, what a fun time for us to come together and just celebrate the way that God is working in and through you to redeem and restore marriages all around the country. I can say on behalf of our team and teams around the country, we are so inspired by the level of sacrificial generosity that you bring, the generosity of your time, of your talent, and of the treasure you invest in this great work of redeeming and restoring marriages for the benefit of children, as you always say. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing your incredible brilliance, your thought leadership to this work. And thank you for being a devout man of prayer, always calling on the Lord to be a part of everything that we do. May God bless you during this really special time and just bless your heart with these incredible celebrations of who you are. Thank you.
Well, all right, Dennis, we hope that you enjoyed our digital thank you card. And more importantly, we really do hope that you feel just how respected, appreciated, and loved you are by the CMI family, because we really do. And we can't wait to hear from you today.
Well, thank you, Stephanie and Carl for putting that together, and thank you really to everybody that spoke into it. I totally was not expecting it. I mean, I saw on the agenda something called digital greeting card, and what I assumed it was is a resource that the Marriage Initiative had put together that we could send to various members of our CMI team, and that's what I was expecting. And so it was totally unexpected. So yeah, I'm somewhat blown away by that. So that was a new experience for me, and I really do appreciate hearing from all of you and hearing the impact that this work is making on our families that we work with, and as Carl said, really on the kids of the families we work with. So thank you to all of you for that. So thanks. Okay, so what I was asked to speak on, and so I got a email a couple of weeks ago from Stephanie with a copy to Carl that says, at a December meeting, we'll have Arlene Pellicane speak, and the focus of the event is the why behind what we do. Would you be willing to speak for 10 minutes on why you're passionate about serving marriages? So 10 minutes. So I do need to start my timer. It's like me honoring the time. So starting it now, be watching it. And Carl will be sharing on the same subject. And so, yeah, and I think it's a good subject, the why behind what we do. And Carl has shared a book that I think the title of the book is, I think, Start with Why. And I think there's a lot of value to that as we do our work, but also as we are working with others, trying to join the coalition. In fact, probably 6 or 9 months ago at one of the monthly Bay County Marriage Champions meetings, we asked everybody there to answer the question, like, why are you passionate about marriage? And I shared my origin story, and I said, it may start with an origin story about what you got involved. And so I'm going to tell a slightly, longer version of it here than I did then. And some of you have heard a kind of a condensed version before as well. And really, it started when my first marriage broke up, and we had been married about 9 years at the time, and we hit a rocky spot, and so we did a trial separation. And the conventional wisdom, at least at the time, and I think it probably is if you're in an unhappy marriage, then the way to get happy is to leave the marriage. And so we were not happily married. So it was like, okay, well, let's do a trial separation for 90 days. And at the end of the 90 days, I was ready to get back together and work on the marriage. And my now ex-wife was not. And she let it be clear that she was ready to move on. And so that really devastated me personally, and much greater than I expected, because we weren't necessarily happy together. But it really it caused a tremendous amount of personal pain for me, and so to deal with that, I actually attended a divorce recovery weekend called Beginning Experience, and was able to process the grief of that. And by the way, the grief really shouldn't be a surprise if you think about it. I mean, that line from scripture that says, what God has joined, let no man tear asunder. And you see, what I actually believe is that when two people get married, they join at the innermost core of their being. And when they divorce or separate, it's ripping that part apart, their heart apart. And anytime you're intertwined and you rip something apart, that causes tremendous amount of pain. And yet conventional wisdom doesn't talk about that. It really doesn't. And so I went through this Beginning Experience ministry. It was very helpful to me. And they asked me to join the team to continue the ministry. And so I joined the team, and very soon they asked me to be the person responsible for training new facilitators. And as part of that, small group facilitators, you have to learn how to listen well to the group. And so I presented a segment from a program called Couple Communication on effective listening. And it taught effective listening skills. And about the second or third time I led that training, after the training was over, as I was debriefing to the rest of the team, I said, you know what, guys, it occurs to me is that if my ex-wife and I had known and practiced these skills that I now train people in as part of divorce recovery ministry, but if we had practiced those in our marriage, we never would have had to get married in the first place. And then I said these kind of fateful words that said, somebody needs to do something to get these kind of programs readily accessible all throughout the United States, so that other people don't have to experience the pain of an unnecessary divorce that I've had to go through. And now when I look out on the screen and see all of you, you're all the somebodies doing the some things so that other people don't have to go through that pain. And not only that they don't have to go through the pain, but that their kids don't go through the pain and the chaos that divorce creates. So that occurred, that divorce actually occurred in 1991. And about 10 years later, I was blessed financially that I was able to step away from the corporate world. And I had to make a choice in my life that says, hey, for the second half of my life, what do I want this life to be about? Do I want it to be about making money? And as many of you guys know, I have an MBA from Harvard, and they teach you how to make money. So I said, do I want to make my life about making money, or do I want to make it about making a difference? And if it's about making a difference, what area should I be working on to make a difference? And so, I really looked around and I said, well, I guess I could look at, hunger's a huge problem. Maybe I could look at getting involved in that. Cancer's a big problem, but I don't have any background in biomedical, and biology just doesn't appeal to me. So that kind of didn't make sense. And so I was seriously looking like where should I invest it? And then I came across and I'm assuming, or I'm guessing, that I might be able to share my screen.
Yes, of course.
Great, thanks. So I came across this article. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, by the Heritage Foundation. They're called the Effects of Divorce on America, and it was published out on June 5th, 2020. And it went through pages upon pages. So the first part's an executive summary, and then it went through all the different areas where divorce had an impact on America. And the other side of it is where strong marriages have a positive impact on it. And we talk about number of children affected each year, the growth of divorce, and then it goes into all the different areas, how divorce affects society, divorce and crime, with lots of data on it, divorce and educational achievement, divorce and addiction, and it covers all these various topics. And you go to the back of it, and what you see, what I saw in it, is that we ended up with, let me flip through it, so many pages, 205 footnotes that shows all the ways that strengthening marriage empowers outcomes, and by contrast, how unhealthy marriages or divorce negatively impact it. And I'm going to switch screen. Let me ask, if I switch screen, if you see the new screen that I have. Didn't work. Do you see a new screen that says My Marriage Matters in America? This is a handout that was put together by Healthy Relationships California that lists at the top all the positive areas where marital success makes an impact. And by contrast, at the bottom, all the areas where marital failure has a negative impact. And there are areas around social health, better health, less injury, longer life, children physically and emotionally healthier, children's achievement, that is, over success in school, reading ability, likely to attend college, overall social impact. And it just you step back and you look at it, and that can be summarized in a different way. And this graphic kind of shows some of the social issues impacted by marriage and divorce. And they're things that we all care about. We care about alcohol use, domestic violence, child abuse, drug use, suicide, all of them across the area. And what occurred to me back in, we're talking 2001 timeframe, was I said, you know what? Most nonprofits and most people that are trying to make impact are addressing the symptom. They're addressing all of these problems, like after they're in effect. Like, how do we cause it? And what occurred to me, and that really came from that Heritage Foundation article, was to say, well, strengthening marriages and families is the one lever we can pull that can have a ripple effect across all these areas of society. And that rather than deal with the problems after they occur, by helping marriages be strong and healthy, we're preventing these problems from occurring in the first place. And all of us, all of you that have worked with marriages and seen them strengthened, can see that in real life. You know, I'm providing coaching right now to a family that's got 4 kids from ages of I don't know, probably 8 to 14. And you see that family and you see how much better it is now than when we started. And the future of those kids positively impacted, that wouldn't have happened. And you listen to the story that Melissa Vandenberg told about that couple in Wyoming who is working with a mentor, and where their marriage was headed in a certain direction with a certain probability of divorce. And you think about the impact on those kids that that would have had. And now that family and those kids, their life is on a completely different trajectory than it would have been if there hadn't been those mentors to have been working with them. And what we realize that in most cases, divorce is a preventable problem. It's a solvable problem, because here's what happened. You see, when you have a couple that's struggling in their marriage and they decide to exit, guess what? All the problems that they had that caused them to have struggle in the marriage, they're still going to have those problems. For example, gee, why'd you get divorced? Well, we were struggling so financially, and so there was no solution. Okay, well, you get a divorce. Well, what do you think? Did your financial situation just improve? Heck no. Now you've got 2 households you have to support. Or if somebody just says, well, you know what? I got a divorce because my husband cheated on me. Well, if you get a divorce, does that mean your husband never cheated on you? No, not at all. You see, the fact that he cheated on you means you feel betrayed right now and you feel deeply hurt. And so the way to heal with that is to heal from that, reconcile. Instead of leaving the marriage where there's been financial problems or infidelity, if you just leave it there, you carry those problems with you onto the next relationship. Now, I am not saying that all divorce is inevitable. In fact, I would say that probably 20% of the cases, there's nothing that can be done. But the flip side of that is 80% of the time, it is preventable, meaning that we can build great marriages. By the way, I'm not talking about building a marriage that basically sticks together, just survivability. What our work does is it allows families to have the type of marriage that God wanted them to have in the first place, that they wanted to have in the first place. So what do? We teach couples how to love one another. And if you look at the core of the gospel message, core of the entire gospel message is love one another. So what we really do with this work is we operationalize the gospel, because we are teaching couples how to love one another. By loving one another, as Arlene indicated, is if you want to have healthy kids, first, strengthen the marriage. And your relationship with kids will make for a better relationship, will make for a better future for those kids. So I am over time. I apologize for that. But that's a very long-winded answer to your question of, like, why do I choose to work in the field of marriages?
Oh, wow, Dennis, thank you so much for sharing. I had never gotten the opportunity to hear your story and why you're passionate about marriage, and that was so inspiring. Like I loved hearing your passion just really comes through today. So thank you so much for sharing. Up next, we have the privilege of hearing from Carl Caton, the president and founder of Marriage Initiative, and he's going to share on the same subject of why he's passionate about marriage. So, Carl, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stephanie. And thank you, Dennis. Yeah, we've had such a good time today just celebrating all that God is doing in and around us. And so I'm going to come at this from the same angle that Dennis came from, is that marriage matters because it is absolutely essential to the design of God's creation. And as a man, I'm going to share an opinion, but I think it's true. And I'm going to say that with rare exception, most men need a good woman in their life. I have one, and I'm super thrilled about that. But I think the research really builds this out. We know from the research that men who are married live longer, they're healthier. Goodness, I think longevity increases by almost 10 years. They're wealthier, they're happier. Um, but even more so than a lot of that angle is that men need the accountability of marriage because men tend to drift, and marriage keeps them centered. Marriage keeps men anchored, and especially marriage keeps men anchored in the family. And I think that's one of the things that we do for us, and I think that's so integral to the design of God's creation. Family is good for men. The family bonds that are created in a family are good for men. The bonds that exist between a father and his kids, the bonds that exist between a father and the mom, the husband and wife, they're good for men. And marriage is uniquely designed to create that. You've heard me say so many times, marriage is more than a more romantic notion. In fact, marriage is the family leadership team. And as you look at the Genesis story, when I look at the story of creation and I look at the first few days of creation, I just see God setting the stage. And when the stage is set, what does he do? He creates the first order of the family, and we see that. And certainly, marriage is created for mutual enjoyment. But one of the things I think we sometimes forget is that marriage is absolutely essential for the advancement of the gospel. And it's so interesting to see how all this fits together because when a man is engaged with his family, when a father is engaged with his kids, so many of the things that Dennis just talked about, some of those things, so many of those things are solved. When dads are present in the life of his kids and parenting alongside the mom, it reduces poverty, it reduces teen pregnancy, it reduces school delinquencies, it reduces drug use, it helps kids be more likely to graduate from school and from college. Um, but one of the things that's even more important than all of that is the research done on the influence of a dad's faith on his kids. And there's a lot of different studies that are out there, but one of them that I think is the most research said this. It says for dads who had a close relationship with his kids, 60%, 67% of those kids carried on the family's faith tradition. Isn't that amazing? When dad had was present in the home, working alongside mom in the raising of the family, those kids were 67% likely to stay in the faith. I think that's very important for us as we think about this. And I'm going to keep my section really short because I want to give you guys time to speak into this. But one of the things I want to say today, and this is not an overstatement, one of the things I want to say is that your work, your ministry matters for eternity. I love this phrase that says that we are called to live every day in light of eternity. We're called to live every day in light of eternity. And by creating strong families, by creating strong marriages, we're creating a place where the faith of the family continues. And so I'll just close with this phrase that I love saying, and that is, children are a voice we send to a time we'll never see. And so I want you to just remind yourself that you are leaving a faith legacy, a generational faith legacy in the lives of families by the work that you're doing. This is isn't it funny? This is a work of evangelism. When Kelly and I moved to San Antonio in 1986, we got in the Louis Palau Crusade. We did block walking for the Louis Palau Crusade, and then from that we got trained and to be in the Billy Graham Crusade, and then I was on the Need Him hotline, and I love being in evangelism, and I still think even today I'm involved in evangelism. It's just that I'm more strategic about it. I think this is a highly overlooked way to be very, very effective in the spread of the gospel through the generations. So thank you for the incredible work that you're doing to help kids, to help families, to help couples have great marriages, but more importantly than anything is to spread the gospel generationally. So thank you, Stephanie.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing with us today, Carl. And as a special twist to our usual Q&A session, we're going to switch gears with it a little bit. And what we're doing is we're going to invite you to take the stage. And in lieu of our standard Q&A segment, we're going to be introducing an open mic session. And this is going to be your opportunity to share with the CMI family why you're passionate about marriage. So if you have a story or an insight or simply a heartfelt message to convey, we want to hear it. So you're just going to raise your virtual hand and I'm going to call on you. But before we transition into the open mic, you can go ahead and raise your hands if you'd like. But before we transition into that time, I'd like to make a quick announcement. And that is that our January training event is going to focus on organizational capacity. And we're covering the specific areas of staffing, reporting, and marketing. We're going to have a resource package that's going to go along with that, with some things that you can adapt and use there in your own cities. And the event's really starting to take shape, and it's going to cover some really helpful information. So we want you to make sure and get that on your calendars and don't miss it. Now, I do want to say, I know that it is almost 1 o'clock, so we do understand if you can't stick around for our open mic session, that's completely fine. We are going to go ahead with that, and we'll be uploading the entire training session, including the open mic segment, onto our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to come back and watch that later. But with that, let's go ahead and open the floor for our open mic session. And do we have anyone who would like to go first? I see Tom with his hand raised.
Yeah, I just quickly, I think I fell into kind of the marriage ministry work. I was working in the public policy arena for 25 plus years. I thought that was my focus, and the Lord kind of redirected me out of that area to a different area, not just policy and marriage and family, but ministry directly. And I think I've come to a deeper conviction of how important it kind of follows up with what Carl and Dennis said, that marriage and family are just foundational to the health, the welfare of society and the church. And John Paul talked about the family being the domestic church. And I also think it's foundational for evangelism, as Carl said, and discipleship. And so anyway, I think my convictions are only growing on how strategic and impactful this work is for all areas of society. A book by Carl Zimmerman, Marriage, Family and Civilization, talked about the decline of even civilizations. And that's kind of big picture, but it just struck me that that's where it ultimately leads. The downfall of societies come from the breakdown of the marriage and family. So anyway, I guess I've become more convinced of the importance the more I've got involved.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing, Tom. I see Anna has her hand raised.
Yeah, I've got a few layers to that onion, but I'll keep them very brief. I'm unapologetically passionate about the marriage relationship dynamic and bringing help and hope to others. First, having grown up in a home with a lot of dysfunction where my mom left when I was 2 and I was a latchkey kid. And so I firsthand experienced a lot of experiences that kids still experience now when families break apart, that I've had to do a lot of healing as an adult. But unfortunately, a lot of adults don't go through that healing process. I have one brother who's been homeless his entire life, and I have another brother who has been in addiction and lives on the welfare system his whole life. And we come from a family where that shouldn't happen. There were resources. So it wasn't about how wealthy you are. It's more about how healthy you are. That impacts the trajectory of the lives of children. So that's the first layer. I taught in the classroom for 16 years. Every single year, I knew by the end of day one which children were coming from a supportive, loving home and which children were not.
Well, it looks like Anna's call dropped. Jason, we will go ahead with you.
For me, marriage matters because a little backstory, I was really good friends with my wife's brother before they're 10 months apart, he's younger. And then one day I just kind of noticed his sister. This was in high school. And so it was, and we grew up going to the same church. So, I mean, we knew each other since we were 11. So, I mean, I knew who she was, but it was just, the light came on one day and it's like, oh, hey, she exists. And so marriage matters to me because, I mean, she was the first girl I fell in love with and pursued her. And she wanted nothing to do with me, like that. In high school, ended up going to the same college, we're from Houston. We went to college in Johnson City, Tennessee. And she thinks I followed her there. I did not. However, I'm okay with that being the story because in the end I got the girl. And so marriage matters to me because she's the one I fell in love with, and all those years ago, and we're still married. And I would say our marriage is better today than what it was even yesterday. And the Lord has been kind, extremely kind and gracious to us personally. And I know if this is even a slight picture of what it could be, then I would want that certainly for my children and my grandchildren, but everyone that I know that I could come in contact with. So that's why it matters to me.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Jason. I loved hearing that. Ron and Joan, I saw that you had your hand.
You do want to share?
Go ahead.
So Joan and I got married when we were 18, so we started out early, and we knew more then than we know now, I think, if you know what I mean. That we thought we did. But after a year and a half of marriage, we were in a real tough spot because I was not a Christian, and that's when I actually asked Christ into my life and followed Jesus, and he literally saved our marriage. So I'm passionate about that, knowing Christ. And from that point, after I accepted Christ, we got involved with Bible study and all that, and actually listened to Howard Hendricks tapes on marriage every Friday night. I think we were like 22 at that point, and that was a real turning point in our life. Got involved in church life and all that, but marriage became really the center point of our ministry. When I was on staff with the church as missions pastor, we also, as pastors, had to take a Sunday school class on Sunday, and I was assigned young marrieds. Well, I knew nothing about working with couples or counseling, but I soon had to begin to do counseling with those couples. And I began to see the importance of marriage, the importance of a healthy family. And it was from that point, I think in 1981, that we really devoted ourselves to wanting to help and train couples to have healthy relationships, and not only in Christ, but also learning skills. Because I know a lot of Christian couples that know Jesus, but they don't know how to communicate or how to resolve conflicts or work through forgiveness issues. And so
So marriage, we're passionate about marriage just because we've seen Christ save our marriage, but also we've seen him help us grow our marriage through using healthy relationship skills. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for
Amen.
sharing. We loved hearing from you guys. I see Bruce and Lita, they have their hand raised.
Yeah, I mean, we have stories about why we started in this, but one story that was really impactful and really kind of emphasized how important marriage ministry is. We are fans of the show Survivor. We've watched all the episodes. We love the show. And one time, a couple of years ago, there were about 7 people sitting on a beach watching the sunset on the show Survivor. And they're all in their 20s and 30s, and every one of them spoke about how their parents got divorced at some point in their life and how it was negatively impacting them even today. Some of them when their parents, when they were little children, some just recently. And it really just kind of struck me as, this is really impacting people for their lifetime, not just for a month or two. And people say kids are resilient, they'll get over it. They don't. And it was really impactful to us.
Yeah. Thank you guys for sharing. I loved hearing that. Anyone else like to share before we close out our event? Dave.
If you hear a big thunder, it's because there's some construction going on about 15 feet to my left. So, but my why for being in marriage ministry started when God broke my heart seeing people that I cared about go through seemingly unnecessary pain of breakups and divorces. And I was blessed to be raised in a home with a wonderful example of a healthy marriage in my parents. And I didn't understand why that was necessary. And God led me into marriage and family therapy, but with a heart for the prevention side, because I want to be able to help people through the nasty stuff that happens. But oh my gosh, clearly, healthy marriages is the upstream point that God's called me and all of us here probably to lean into because of the ripple effects, because of just the so many things are related to dysfunctional and broken marriages that tear at all of our hearts. And so it's just been clarified over and over again that the Lord says, Dave, focus on building healthy marriages. Healthy families flow from that, healthy children, healthy churches, healthy communities. So that's something that I appreciate about this network, this community marriage group, is being able to come alongside and lean into this with all of you who I know have very similar passions and hearts. So that's a glimpse into my why.
I loved hearing that. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dave. I think that really kind of sums up a lot of what all of us feel, and that is, hearts that are broken over this subject and for people that are going through this and really don't have to. And so we want to do something to help with that. So thank you for sharing your heart so vulnerably. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Well, all right, then I guess that concludes our training event for today, and we hope that you've enjoyed this. And I know it's been really inspiring to me, and I've just loved hearing everyone's stories, and it's been really inspirational. If there's anything at all that we can do to support you, please reach out to me at sammy.soltmans@gmail.com. And then once again, we just want to tell you guys thank you so much for joining us. Have a great weekend, a wonderful Christmas, and a happy new year. And we love you all. Goodbye.